You're listening to the Season 4 finale of Cosmic Cousins. For grounding your ass from all the New Age sass, I am your host, Jeffrey Allen Henshaw. Season 4 of Cosmic Cousins is dedicated to honoring the interconnectedness of our universal family through embodied health, self-discovery, and deeper learning. Well, cousins, my black nail polish is beginning to chip off, and so y'all know what that means. We're coming towards the close out of our Scorpio season, and what a ride it's been. Today, for our Season 4 finale, we have a potent and powerful episode. We'll be honoring the life of our final 2 Scorpio queens. You all on the Instagram for the show have narrowed 16 women down to 2, and so we have Bjork, our fiercely passionate and intensely transformative Icelandic queen who travels to the depths of emotion, heading up against Georgia O'Keeffe, our deeply mysterious and alluring mother of modernism who honored death by uncovering the beauty of nature's regenerative power. Both of these women are Scorpio Sun, Scorpio Moon, and Scorpio Rising. Like, really let that sink in. This is the intensity of Scorpio that's never happened before. It's full-blown Scorpio. So we'll be honoring both of their lives on the show today. We'll take a look at the birth charts, and we'll reflect on who is giving us that Queen of Scorpio feel. And we really get a nice understanding of this by sitting down and talking to 3 Scorpios. So we have a deeply rich and heartfelt conversation on the show today with our first ever Scorpio panel. And on the panel, we have Jerico Mandybur, who is the author of the Neo Tarot, the host of the Self-Service podcast, and the editorial director of Girlboss, based in Los Angeles. We have Alia Walston, an intuitive channeler based in Chicago who helps to transmute pain into empowerment. And Pavanjeet, a Kundalini Yoga teacher based in Boulder, Colorado, who consults the current astrological transits when teaching. And in this conversation, we go in deep in a very Scorpio way. We talk about why Scorpios wear all black and sometimes all white. We talk about Pluto and Capricorn, Scorpio's connection between fear and sexuality. We talk about Scorpio and celibacy, learning to be vulnerable in relationships, romanticizing the lower incarnation of Scorpio. And then we also go in on the polarity of Scorpio and Taurus, and we round out our time with an in-depth celebration of both Bjork and Georgia O'Keeffe, and by creating a Scorpio altar. So that's all at the end of this episode. And before we get into all of that juiciness, let's start by bringing our awareness to our bodies and to our breath. Each week on Cosmic Cousins, there will always be an opportunity for you to slow down and tune in. This has been so important in my astrology practice, and it's so we don't float off into the cosmos, but instead bring our awareness to this earth plane so we can take that cosmic inheritance and put it into practical use. And here we are, it's Scorpio season, so bring your awareness to the reproductive organs, to the genitalia, the bladder, the urinary tract. This is the part of the body that connects us to the energy of Scorpio. This also connects us to the energetic region of the sacral chakra, so you can breathe into the energy in and around all of these parts of the body. Svadhisthana is a Sanskrit word for the sacral. And in each energetic center, there can be a sense of stagnation or spiritual debris that can collect. And so bringing the awareness to the breath is helping to clear that up. And let's tune into it today. What might you be holding on to in this sacral region? One emotion that might live here is guilt. And I'm not talking about guilt in the sense of involving other people. That guilt is like, I should have called that person back, but I didn't, so now I feel guilty. This is not what we're talking about. We're talking about guilt that is deep within you. It's a guilt that you may not even be conscious of, right? Scorpio is taking us into the depths of the unconscious. So let's tune into guilt for a moment. And this might be connected to our sexuality, to our desires, our primal emotions that are underneath the surface. I think it's also important to clarify between guilt and shame. So shame is the belief that there's something wrong with you. It's very personal. Whereas guilt is connected to the action. Guilt is the belief that you are doing something wrong or you did something wrong. So for instance, I feel guilty that I masturbated. I don't feel shameful. This is just an example, right? Which is a moment in my life where I have felt guilty. So there was an action that took place, right? A fulfillment of desires, but somehow you're left with the residual feelings of guilt. So where might you hold on to guilt in your life? We're bringing this up because this is the sacral chakra region. We store this in this part of the body, and this is the kind of work we do during Scorpio season. So where might you hold on to guilt in your life? And where does this guilt come from? Does it come from a preordained expectation that you place on yourself? Does it come from structures or authority or society? So we can start with this question. What's something you desire but you deny yourself? I'll ask again. What is something you desire but deny yourself? For some of you, this might come really easily. For others of you, you may not even think that you deny yourself your desires. But I want you to allow a deep felt desire to arise, whether or not you deny it from yourself or not. And maybe there's a need for or a desire for more solitude in your life. But there's a deep feeling of guilt. And you tell yourself you are indulging when you go there. That's just an example. So perhaps you have sexual desires that you're embarrassed of or you feel are wrong. Can you tune into those as well? And are these feelings of guilt coming from you? Are they judgments that you place on yourself? Or have they been placed on you with judgment from someone else? An authority figure? Society? Oftentimes when we repress our desires, we then try to take power over them. If you repress desires, this is getting us into the struggle with power dynamics. If others are repressing your desires, they're taking power over you. This is getting us into the Scorpio energy of power. For instance, if someone judges you for being gay, you may feel a sense of guilt. When you allow yourself to go there and act upon it, you then feel guilty. But this feeling of guilt has been passed down to you. It has been placed upon you by the powers to be. And there's some sort of control, our dominance that's taking place here. And we're all about relinquishing this time of year to come into our own sense of power that is in alignment with our deep felt emotions, to honor your desires. And I'm not saying that all of our desires need to be expressed or manifest, but they are worth tuning into and listening to instead of trying to suppress them, which then in turn depresses them. And then depression can ensue. But listening to what you desire and having a conversation with them, it allows it to be freed up. Another time in my life where I have felt guilty, and this could be a reflection of my Aquarius nature, was I felt guilty that I wasn't doing anything to bring about an improvement to society. I felt guilty when I'd have a glass of wine, okay? And even though there's a lot going on in the world right now, sending prayers out to those in Malibu who have lost their homes or have been relocated, sending prayers to those in Thousand Oaks who are grieving after the shooting, and sending love to all that are experiencing some sort of pain or suffering in the world, right? We're all sending this love, but still giving ourselves the permission to desire, to want more for your life, to feel good, to enjoy, even though there is darkness. Scorpio is feeling into this darkness, this grief, this death, this sadness. And we might deny ourselves the permission to go into the realm of enjoyment, which, by the way, is Scorpio's polar energy of Taurus. But know that you can have both. You can have the deep felt emotion and feel the pain and the rage and the anguish, the sadness. But you can also feel great in your body. You can be sensual with it, with your sexuality. And there might not be moments in time where we want to have both. But this is a message that was coming through strongly this morning. So give yourself a nice squeeze. We can start by massaging our arms. And if that feels okay for you in this moment, go ahead and do that. I also like to bring my hands to my jawline and massage with my fingers on the jawline. This loving attention and awareness to the body is so important this time of year. And Scorpio is ruled by Pluto. So if you find yourself too much in the Plutonian energy, too much in the Scorpio energy this time of year, you can say, Venus, take the wheel. Taurus, the polar sign to Scorpio, is ruled by Venus. So just say it to yourself. Offer it up to the cosmos. Venus, take the wheel. And here we are. We have a right to enjoy ourselves in our body. And so a deep inhale into all of that. Thank you, as always, for being here and carving out the time to be with your body and your breath. I have a few announcements before we get into the Queen of Scorpio. For one, this is the season finale of season 4. Can you believe? It's been such an incredible journey from Leo all the way to Scorpio, and the reason why it's the end of this season is because we have a Mercury retrograde coming up. So here on Cosmic Cousins, we take a break during Mercury retrograde. Mercury goes retrograde on November 16th, 2018, which is this Friday if you're listening to this episode live. And so that's why today is the season finale. And Mercury will be heading from Sagittarius back towards Scorpio, where it will have a little stint in Scorpio. It moves into Scorpio on December 2nd. Mercury retrograde gets a bad rap. I think it's a wonderful time to be less connected to your phone, to be less connected to emails, to give yourself time to really be quiet. And it's a good time for alone time and being with your thoughts and reflecting on the previous cycle. And yeah, so we will be taking off some time from the show. And this could be a time where you go back and listen to episodes maybe you didn't get to. But if you are interested in still receiving meditations and astrological updates, you can sign up for the Patreon of the show at patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. Patreon is a website that allows entrepreneurs like myself to be rewarded for the content that they create by using their platform. So the platform allows listeners to commit to making a monthly contribution. And if you listen to this show every week and you have the funds to help out an independent astrologer and philosopher, then it would be greatly appreciated. As a Patreon member, you will receive episodes during off-season Mercury retrograde, and these episodes are shorter. They don't include interviews with others, but they are still packed with great information. They're about 30 minutes long. It always includes a guided meditation, current transit update, and I'll be updating you on the Queen of the Zodiac as well. And those episodes come out on Wednesday. And again, patreon.com/Cosmic Cousins. And we have a few new Patreon members to celebrate this week. We have Maggie George and Sophie Wurr. Thank you so much for supporting. This show would not be possible without you. And also to all the other Patreon members, thank you. Also, if you're interested in learning tarot with me, I have a 6-month group immersion. I have 2 spots left in the Tuesday night class, and then I'm going to have 2 other class slots opening up in the coming week, and I'll be getting to all of that this week. Since I won't be producing the podcast, I'll have more time to put into that. But this is a 6-month journey through the major arcana of the tarot, and it's from January to June of 2019. It's a deep dive experience of ritual immersion. You can find out more information at brooklynfools.com. I also have really big and exciting news about the season 5 premiere. It's going to have a live studio audience. I'll tell you more of those details after we announce the Queen of Scorpio. I'll announce the details for that. So yeah, at this time, let's transition into the Queen of the Zodiac. So here on the show, we have this segment called Queen of the Zodiac, where I select 16 legendary women who offer a window of opportunity into understanding the astrological energy of the sun season that we're currently in. So I picked 16 Scorpio women, and what's really interesting, and really each Queen of the Zodiac series that we have had from Taurus all the way up until now, it offers us a wonderful opportunity to feel into the energy of the sign before voting even takes place. And with the Queen of Scorpio, what I found is there was an intensity in a way that everyone was super stoked about Queen of Scorpio. More people than ever filled out brackets. More people than ever were reposting and really getting into predictions and saying that they felt really seen by all of the Scorpio women, that they felt really connected to them. And I think that's a reflection of, you know, in the astrology, tarot, new age community, we are feeling into Scorpio energy always, going into the depths of human emotion. And it was cool to see that reflected back. I also had more people reach out saying, I can't believe you didn't include this person or that person. And I thought that as well showed Scorpio's way of getting in deep with others and feeling really relatable because of their willingness to share the darker parts of themselves. And we've taken the 16 queens. We've narrowed it down to 2 now. Bjork and Georgia O'Keeffe, both Scorpio Sun, Scorpio Moon, Scorpio Rising. That has never happened before. We've never had someone be all three Sun, Moon, and Risings, and the fact that both of them are is lending us into the intensity of Scorpio as well. So let's start by talking about Bjork. Bjork is an Icelandic singer, songwriter, composer, actress, record producer, and DJ. In her 4-decade career, she has developed an eclectic musical style all of her own that infuses electronic, pop, experimental, classical, trip-hop, and avant-garde music. Bjork was born on November 21st, 1965 at 7:50 a.m. Bjork, again, is a Scorpio Sun, Moon, Rising, with Neptune and Scorpio rising at the time of her birth. Bjork was a childhood musical prodigy, and she had a hit album at the age of 12, singing Icelandic nursery rhymes, and came to international attention as a singer with the Sugar Cubes in the late 80s. Her scowling voice and intensity crafting beats in this very dissonant, harsh DIY way reflects this rage of Scorpio, but still she transforms the darkness with an ethereal and playful nature. On her first album, solo album, it was called Debut, and she wrote the songs on it. She had already written half of the songs for Debut in some form in her teenage years. She had written many of them years before moving to London, including Human Behavior, which she wrote as a teenager. And Bjork revealed more information about the writing of the song in an interview, and she said, quote, "I wrote it I was referring to my childhood and probably talking about how I felt more comfortable on my own walking outside singing and stuff than hanging out with humans." And in another interview, it's interesting because she said that in one interview, but then in another interview, she said it's about the animal's point of view of a human. And the animals are definitely supposed to win in the end, is something that she said. So she has these like different ways of interpreting her own songs. It feels quite transformative, but I thought it would be cool. I want to read these lyrics to you. So the song from Human Behavior goes like this. If you ever get close to a human and human behavior, be ready. Be ready to get confused. There's definitely no logic to human behavior, but yet so irresistible, and there's no map. They're terribly moody and human behavior, and then all of a sudden turn happy. But oh, to get involved in the exchange of human emotions is ever so satisfying. Oh, and there's no map, human behavior. There's definitely no logic, she says, to get involved in the exchange of human emotions, and it's irresistible. All of this is the deep longing of Scorpio to merge with the depths of human emotion. But there can be this tendency as a fixed water sign to want to protect itself from that. So let's listen to a clip from this song for research purposes to feel into the intensity of her voice and beats, and also this message that feels very Scorpio, the deep observation of observing this planet we live on. Scorpio is connected to the depth and to spirit realms. And so we feel this very Scorpion way of perhaps feeling a little different or even suspicious of other humans. So let's hear this Scorpio energy now. Bjork's genius mind focuses on the inner workings of our psycho-spiritual connection found here on Earth, and her piercing intellect excavates deeper meaning, and it's giving us that fixed water vibe. Her songs are littered with Scorpio references to ocean depths in the song The Anchor Song, to deep felt rage and power. She deeply explores sexuality and fear that is associated with such, and she explores volcanic eruptions and death, and she even has a song that's named Pluto, which we know is Scorpio's ruling planet. So let's talk about Pluto a little bit. Pluto is the planet of the underworld. And right on Bjork's midheaven, the powerful duo of Uranus and Pluto join. Let me say that again. Pluto and Uranus are conjunct. They're 1 degree apart from each other in her chart, and it's right on her midheaven. Midheaven is what was above you at the time of your birth. This pair, Pluto and Uranus, they orbit the sun so slowly that they only meet in the sky once every 120 years. And this transit, the Uranus-Pluto transit, is talked about as the age when psychedelics were happening, right? She was born in 1965. But the fact that it's in her birth chart on her midheaven makes it very prominent in her life, especially as a Scorpio, because Pluto is her ruling planet. So your midheaven is your public offering. Uranus is the ruling planet of Aquarius. It's innovative, it's technological, it's revolutionary. Pluto, the ruling planet for Scorpio, is transformation, underworld, and power. And so what we have here is someone whose career, midheaven, is a radical expression of the new age in technology, Uranus, Aquarius, that is doing it in a way that is going into the underworld and transforming it. Pluto, Scorpio. This gives Bjork's feeling of Scorpio with this conjunction that only happens every 120 years, a very Aquarius feel to it. Uranus being the ruling planet of Aquarius. And the thing is she does go into the depths of human emotion, but she also does it in a futuristic way that is very eccentric, very out there, and something that none of us have ever seen before. I want to read you some lyrics from this song, Pluto. She says, "Excuse me, but I just have to explode. Explode this body off me. I'll be brand new tomorrow. A little bit tired, but brand new." Let's feel into this conjunction of Pluto and Uranus.
Excuse me, but I just have to explode this body of me.
So powerful. If you get a chance, check out her doing that live. I posted a clip of it on my Instagram. Feeling into that Scorpio and Aquarius energy, that Pluto and Uranus energy. Bjork is unlike anyone that we've ever seen before. The thing about her is she isn't just a musician. She isn't just a performer. She feels really like a shaman that's channeling this connection between the worlds, this world and other worlds. And she enters into trance states of mind and harnesses a great deal of transformative power in her performances. So I really encourage you just to kind of go online and like check out some of her videos, not just the music videos, but live performances. She's had a transformation, right? Scorpio's transformation throughout her career. She started out as a young woman writing songs about death with lyrics about acting numb to prevent emotional pain, underscored by moody strings. And she's now expanded and evolved to creating other worlds of magic and imagination. In the video to Arisen My Senses, Bjork reenacts a scene of rebirth, right? Scorpio, and is inside of like this like placenta singing. Arisen my senses. Senses is Scorpio evolving through Taurus, is getting in touch with their five senses, right? But Bjork also has Neptune rising at the time of her birth too. Neptune is the planet of daydreams, imagination, spirituality, other worlds. This is now giving her a Piscean energy as well because she's a Neptune rising. She's got Uranus and Pluto on her midheaven, Neptune rising. And when you watch her music videos and her performance, she does also give off a very Pisces energy. I know I'm kind of sounding like I'm saying she has Scorpio, Aquarius, and Pisces, but it's in her chart. She has the ability to create other worlds and to take us there. That is a Piscean thing, Neptune. But she is still a triple Scorpio. And so she does it in a way that is intense, plummeting to the depths of emotion while exploring the underworld. And she has a way of expressing Scorpio primal emotions like rage and violence, but does it in a loving and compassionate way. It's so beautiful. And we see that reflected in her chart with Neptune and Scorpio rising at the time of her birth. And her innovation in music is a primal expression of feminism and radical change, although she will not say that. She has a quote where she says, maybe one day I'll grow up and be a feminist. And the thing is she's not conscious that she already is. And the thing is her innovation can't actually be explained consciously with words, but instead it's felt in the ripples beneath the surface of our current culture's fabric. In this song, Arisen My Senses, she's actually talking about how she longs, a deep longing, a Scorpio, to be in a sexual immersion with someone else, merging. So this is some of the lyrics. Just that kiss was all there is. Every cell in my body lined up for you. Legs a little open. Once again, awaken my senses. Head topless, arisen my senses. Just that kiss was all there is. My hands, my palms, pulsating of the things I want to do to you. I want to do to you. Just the kiss. Just that kiss is all there is. So we also feel this deep longing, and the thing is Bjork also had a lot of heartache in her life, and she channeled her heartache into her music. And I'd like to play a clip from this song, and this will be the last clip that we play, just to kind of feel her transformation throughout. All of her songs and sounds have been very, very different, and she's always constantly exploring the depth of her creative potential. In this album, Utopia, she explores a lot of nature sounds. And it's nature, which is Scorpio evolving through Taurus. And it also sounds kind of futuristic, this Pluto and Uranus coming together. So let's listen to this little clip from Arisen My Senses.
Was all there is. Every cell in my body lined up for you. Relax a little open. Runs again. Awaken my senses.
Bjork's connection to her native land of Iceland has deeply influenced the way she relates to the world and to healing. She talks about how it felt very normal for her to have 22 hours of darkness, and that she loves being in that, loves being by the icy water. And her music draws you in with this intimacy to see and feel her isolation, her heartbreak, and ultimately her healing as she sews up her wounds with both this intensity but also a gentleness. And in an extremely emotional and honest album, Bjork delves into a very real heartbreak. The album's called Volnakura, and separating from her partner after a decade, Bjork describes the split as the most painful thing she has ever experienced. And these events sparked a new way of working, and she immersed herself in her work. Scorpio is immersing themselves in their craft. She said, the only way I could deal was to start writing for strings. I decided to become a violin nerd and arrange everything for 15 strings and take a step further than what I've done before. The Scorpio immersion. Bjork speaks directly to the Scorpio archetype of the warrior in this by comparing her immersion into her work as a fierce act of love. And again, Bjork is a Scorpio sun, an intense little girl. Scorpio moon in the shadowy darkness of night. Scorpio rising, transforming darkness into light. And that's exactly what she's done through her life and work. Bjork, what an honor it has been to dive into the depths of your work. And now let's transition into honoring the great Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe, known as the mother of modernism, is an American artist. She was best known for her paintings of enlarged flowers, New York skyscrapers, New Mexico landscapes, and bones of dead animals. She was born on November 15th, 1887, and she is a Scorpio sun, a Scorpio moon, a Scorpio rising with Mercury and Jupiter in Scorpio and her point of fortune. We got a mad Scorpio stellium happening here in Georgia's chart. All in the first house. Georgia grew up in a remote area of Wisconsin in a farmhouse in Sun Prairie, and her parents were dairy farmers. Georgia was the second of 7 children and was the oldest girl in the family. By the age of 10, she had decided she wanted to be an artist, and she and her sisters received art instruction from a local watercolorist. And she was always thought of as severe in her childhood and as a loner, and she was described by her sisters as being quite bossy. But she also, from some of the stuff that I was listening to, was quite charming. Like, people actually enjoyed being around her, even though she had this intensity about her. She didn't put up any fronts. She let you know how she was feeling. And upon graduation from high school, she was determined to become a professional artist and first attended the Institute of Chicago and then moved to New York City. And rebelling against what was popular or expected of women, both in her lifestyle and in her art. We got to think, she was born in 1887 and is this young woman that's moving to New York City. So she stayed focused on her own vision, and she knew her rights as an individual. So she learned everything she needed to from her teachers. She learned the traditional modes and structures of art, but she didn't then use that as a launching point for transformation. And she eventually trusted her intuitive understanding of form and became an unconscious rebel. A quote from her that I thought was pretty cool is this, quote, "I've been absolutely terrified every moment of my life, and I've never let it keep me from doing a single thing that I wanted to do." While in New York City, Georgia met Stieglitz, who was a powerful artist and photographer, and he was drawn in by Georgia's magnetic Scorpio ways to the point some might even have thought that he was obsessed with her. He started a 20-year photography project in which he took over 300 published portraits of her, which are all stunning. His work makes Georgia appear to be a superhuman, and he was very connected to the New York City art scene, and he got Georgia notoriety for sure, but it was still Georgia's determination and innovation that made her so famous. Georgia and her partner were intensely passionate and deeply longed for one another. They shared in their intimacy through art, poetry, letters, and photography, a lot of which has been captured. Here's a quote that Georgia wrote to Stieglitz. She says, "My body is simply crazy with wanting you. The kisses, the hotness, the wetness, all melting together." And then he wrote to her in a letter, quote, "You have given me something so empowering that I feel as though I have shot up suddenly into the skies and touched the stars." The thing is, though, her partner and husband continually cheated on her, leaving O'Keeffe heartbroken, and she endured their open love affair until 1933, when she suffered a nervous breakdown that left her hospitalized for 2 months. After this, she sought solace in her art and time and permanently relocated to live alone in the desert of New Mexico. And her deep longing to understand life after the anguish of heartbreak led her to a place called Ghost Ranch, which was a art and retreat center. And her act of pioneering out west in the early 1900s as a woman so she could create on her own terms and heal on her own terms was an act of defiance that continues to inspire. And from this entered a deep felt compassion and empathy for nature and humankind. Georgia channeled her grief and heartache into her art, and it was when she went to New Mexico that she started breaking rules, and she started bringing healing to her life through her deep connection to nature, to solitude, and through her artwork. And what was so prominent about her work is that she found in nature symbolic equivalents for her inner emotional states and developed a vocabulary of forms based on observation. And so it was isolated from their natural context, and her subjects were simplified in form and detail to transcend the particular and to become abstract symbols of nature's regenerative force. There was a sense of sexuality that oozed from her paintings as well. Even in, originally her flower portraits, which is what she was first well known for, often were typecasted as looking vaginal. But what's interesting is O'Keeffe is they're not vaginal. They're flowers. You're placing your own preconceived notions onto my creations. But there was a sense of sexuality, regardless if that was her intent, that oozed from her. And this is the Scorpio nature, the unconscious nature of sexuality. Throughout her career, she then transformed from watercolor to acrylic to charcoal to painting bones. And her life was a reflection of this continual creative expression. She talks in an interview how she'd look back on her old work, or she'd look back on old photographs of herself and not even recognize the woman or the art because she had died so many times in between. She adopted an aggressively somber palette at one moment in her life where she used a lot of blacks, but she used it in a soft and velvety way that was no less sensuous than her previous art forms. And my favorite painting by her is called Black Abstraction. And it represents the crystallization of a moment in time of emotion that was prompted by an incident in the summer of 1927 when she was operated on at Mount Sinai Hospital, New York, for a benign lump in her breast. So she is going into these deep parts of the human experience and reflecting on them and bringing them out in her work. Another thing fascinating about her is that she was a master seamstress. In addition to her artwork, she created an entire lifestyle and aesthetic. And she made all of her own clothes. She kept some of her dresses for as long as 60 years, and she exuded a sharp discernment that created an understated androgynous style that shaped her self-crafted persona. And she carefully curated her home. She didn't like to have anything on the walls. She was like, why would I want to look at the same shapes every day? She liked it to be a clean canvas, and everything was in the same monochrome color in her home. And her look, the clothes she wore were always black and white. She would never go in public without wearing black. And often she had these long cloak kind of modern day witch thing going on. And if you look at pictures of her, she was always like this. This isn't just she decided to become like this when she older. When you look at pictures of her from high school or college, in groups with other kids, she's wearing all black and she looks severely different. And this presence drew others in with her mysterious allure. This is Scorpio. Another interesting fact about Georgia is, and it pertains to the Queen of the Zodiac, is that Her and Frida Kahlo is the queen of Cancer, they built a strong friendship of deep solace around their estranged romantic relationships and also about being pioneering women in art. And what's especially interesting is the reversal of their circumstances that pertain to the relationship between art and health. So Frida Kahlo had actually first begun painting while recovering from the brutal accident when she was hit by a train, and then O'Keeffe was doing the opposite. She was recovering in bed from brutally immersing and overextending herself in her art and in her love. And so, Georgia, we have this stoic loner who gives us the feel of the Scorpio archetype of the shaman with her deep isolation, immersion in nature, and awareness of emotion and ancestral energy. And she exudes this magnetic power in her creative work and presence. And she held the power to absolve darkness through her work, and she continued to paint even with the almost complete loss of her eyesight and ill health. And her deep connection to the land and bones and living until the age of 98 is a testament to her spiritual prowess. And she understood the importance of the connection to her body and to nature. And I'd like for us to listen to a little clip from a documentary on her life so we can feel into her energy.
The cliff's over there. You look at it and it's almost painted for you, you think, until you try. I tried to paint what I saw. Got down deep enough into the ground, you got to the purple earth. You looked out at the cliffs and you thought that just would be no job at all. You just put down what you saw and you'd have a good painting. But I found it didn't quite work that way. The bones are shapes that I enjoy. It never occurs to me that they have anything to do with death. They are very lively.
She was somebody who expressed the ineffable in life. There was no difference in her mind between art and life.
Through her determination and voice and life and art, Georgia's transformative lifelong journey continues to inspire and offer spiritual guidance to women and artists long after her death. Another quote that I love from her is this quote, "When I think of death, I only regret that I will not be able to see this beautiful country anymore, unless the Indians are right, and my spirit will walk here after I'm gone." Georgia O'Keeffe is an intense little girl, Scorpio sun, and the shadowy darkness of night, Scorpio moon, transforming darkness into light, Scorpio rising, and that's exactly what she did through her life and work. It's been such a deep honor to honor Georgia's life over this past month. I didn't know very much about her before, and I'm also excited I'm going to be going to Ghost Ranch over the holiday season as well. So inspiring to learn from her. Thank you, Georgia O'Keeffe. We love you. So if you listen to the show regularly, you might recognize the sound of this music, and that is the music of the Queen of the Zodiac. Here, over the last 4 weeks, we have been narrowing down 16 Scorpio women to our final 2. And I've synthesized all of the information I've gathered from these studies and from conversations I've had with other Scorpios and brought it into 5 soul-centered Scorpio traits. And so we will be voting on each of these categories and looking at these 2 women and saying who embodies these traits more. And this is all voted on the Instagram for the show, cosmic.cousins. And there's also 1 vote for the Scorpio panel. And then if it gets tied up there, then we go into a final vote. When Bjork wins a category, this is what you'll hear.
Of human emotion is ever so satisfying.
When Georgia O'Keeffe wins a category, this is what you'll hear.
are shapes that I enjoy. It never occurs to me that they have anything to do with death. They are very lively.
So we'll start with soul-centered Scorpio trait number 1. Intuitively honors death and rebirth through creative transformation. Bjork's transformation has shown a young woman writing songs about death to now evolving to creating other worlds of magic and imagination through creative transformation. Georgia has transformed from acrylic to watercolor to charcoal, from city scenes to flowers to landscapes, to then working with bones. And her life was a reflection of continual creative transformation, and the honoring of bones was also the honoring of death and rebirth. And so you all voted.
The bones are shapes that I enjoy. It never occurs to me that they have anything to do with death. They are very lively.
Giving us that unconscious honoring of death, Georgia's deep connection to the lands and bone, and her living and creating until the age of 98 is a testament to death and rebirth. Category number 2, harnesses an unconscious rebellion to expand outside of culture's predetermined box. Unconscious rebellion. This is the very act of your being is rebellious, without even a conscious desire to be. I write more deeply about this in a post on Instagram where I talk about Aries as the conscious rebel, Scorpio as a subconscious rebel, and Aquarius as a superconscious rebel. Check that out. But Bjork had an innovation in music with a primal expression of radical change that can't even consciously be explained, but can be felt in the ripples beneath the surface of our culture's fabric. And then Georgia O'Keeffe is known for rebelling against women artist label by breaking rules of what it was acceptable in art. And so you all voted, and
Of human emotion, it's ever so satisfying.
And to be sure, Bjork harnesses an unconscious rebellion, redefining music and beauty in a way that comes from the depths of her being. Category number 3, from the ashes of anguish and longing, resurrects profound compassion and empathy. Bjork channeled her work into bringing healing to deep-felt heartbreak and pain after the end of a decade-long relationship, and Georgia exuded a deep longing and anguish in her relationship with her partner who continually cheated on her.
The bones are shapes that I enjoy. It never occurs to me that they have anything to do with death. They are very lively.
And Georgia won by about 63% of the votes on that one, making it 2 Georgia O'Keeffe, 1 Bjork. Category number 4, magnetic power absolves darkness by fiercely plummeting to the depths of human emotion. And this is exactly what both of these women did, but Bjork did it in a way through her lyrics, her costumes, her musical arrangement, and her embodiment in a way that speaks to the depth of the soul. And then Georgia adopted an aggressively somber palette, working with blacks and charcoals that represented the crystallization of a moment of emotion with this power to absolve darkness. And you all voted.
Of human emotion, it's ever so satisfying.
And so now it's tied up 2-2. We have these 2 Scorpio queens, both Scorpio moon, sun, rising, and they both have won 2 soul-centered traits. So they're both really giving us this Scorpio feeling. I thought we would pause here for a little suspense, and we'll take it into the conversation that the Scorpio panel had. This is 3 Scorpios talking in depth about Bjork and Georgia O'Keeffe, and they get to cast a vote towards one of these women. So let's tune into this portion of the Scorpio panel now. I think this could be a cool segue into the Queen of Scorpio, because what we're doing in the Queen of Scorpio is honoring the life of 16 women who are Scorpios, and we're working our way into feeling into who is giving us high vibe Scorpio, soul-centered Scorpio, and both Bjork and Georgia O'Keeffe, our final 2, both deeply immerse themselves in nature, giving us that Taurus side. And they both, it was interesting to hear you all talk about the immersion in work, and also the ability to be that longing for intimacy, both of these women have taken sabbaticals from their work because they immersed themselves in it so much, and they gave so much of themselves to the point where George O'Keeffe was hospitalized at one point for overworking. Bjork had to take off time to just completely immerse herself in nature. But, so let's start. I want to start by talking about Bjork, and then we'll talk about George O'Keeffe. So first up, we have Bjork in our final two, who is our fiercely passionate and intensely transformative performer who travels into the depth of emotion. So let's first create dialogue around how Bjork might connect us to the energy of Scorpio.
Ooh, yeah, I think fierce is the word, because, there's this real ferocity with Bjork, and I feel like she has this energy like she can turn on you at any moment, and I love that. And people always refer to her as a pixie or a nymph, which I think speaks to that as well. And I remember being really young, before I was actually really into music, and I heard about Bjork because she had punched a paparazzo in the face.
Yes. I think about that all the time. The image of her going after with two hands, totally just tearing apart this photographer. I remember that.
She wants her privacy.
Yeah, for good reason, probably, I'm sure. And also, one of my favorite Bjork songs is Army of Me, which sums up this kind of really emotionally based, Mars, intense energy for me. And the lyrics are this, Scorpio when provoked. It's kind of funny. It says stuff like, stand up, you've got to manage, I won't sympathize anymore. And the chorus is, if you complain once more, you'll meet an army of me. And I just feel that intensity is so, it's palpable in every one of her songs.
Absolutely. Yeah, Bjork is one of my favorite artists of all time. And if someone else wasn't going to bring up her attacking the paparazzi, I was going to bring it up too. So I remember seeing that as a kid too, on MTV, her just snapping because she was trying to protect her child as well. So that was one of the first times that I was exposed to her. And also the All Is Full of Love video, the kind of cold but deeply sexual representation of the robots being built and communing in love. And this anecdotally for me, I saw her, I'm based in Chicago, and she performed at Pitchfork Music Fest a few years ago, and she was the headliner for the first or second night, and she had this giant Tesla coil on the stage, which was incredible. And then there was this huge storm that came in, and her set actually had to be cut short because the storm was so big. And just and at first when the set was cut short, it didn't seem like the storm was going to be that bad. And she was like, well, we had way worse storms than this in Iceland. And she kind of walked off the stage kind of pissed. But then all of a sudden this torrent of rain and wind and lightning just kind of came out. And I was like, wow, this bitch brought the storm this beautiful way. And so I think a lot about that when I think about her too. She really channeled this force. It was too much for Chicago that night. Really transformative. And also anecdotally, a good friend of mine who passed away, that was her favorite artist too, and that's how one of the ways that he and I made a connection. So I associate Bjork with death in a lot of ways too, just on a personal level, in addition to her music always going there as well. So yeah, I'm a huge Bjork fan.
I also love Bjork. I think of her as such a channel in a very Scorpion way. And to me, it's in every moment, sometimes when I meditate, I get into this place where I feel all the answers and all of truth is in that moment. And if you can just experience it, then it's there. And what I love about what she's done is she's taken the beeping of a clock, or she's taken the ringing of a phone, or kind of these background noises in her earlier career, these background noises that we would just ignore, or we would be annoyed by, or we would be like, this is some kind of synthetic something, but then arranged it in a way that creates this otherworldly expanding into the infinite thing, where you can realize the truth in every moment. There's nothing that doesn't have value. The answers are always there. And so I love that kind of lesson of the way her music is.
Yeah, there's like a sweetness to it too. Like, I think that Scorpio is really easy to kind of go into like the cynical. But to go back to All Is Full of Love as a song too, like that's one of the first songs that ever made me cry, where I got it. I felt it. I felt like she was speaking to me or through me in some ways. And that song is amazing because she says, like, you'll be given love, you'll be taken care of. She doesn't buy into the cynicism, even though there's like this, she recognizes it, she acknowledges that it's easy to kind of dive into despair, but instead she offers another perspective, another choice in which we can be redeemed even through our pain. And that's a real value that I see in her work as well.
If Bjork wins, she will offer a major upgrade, for me at least, to understanding Scorpio energy, the way of expressing primal emotions like rage in a loving and like vibrantly creative way is so cool to me. And she really gives us the energy of the magical phoenix rising from the ashes. So let's talk about Georgia O'Keeffe. Georgia O'Keeffe is deeply mysterious and alluring, as the mother of modernism, who honored death by uncovering the beauty of nature's regenerative power through her paintings. I'd love to hear how you might sense into Georgia O'Keeffe reflecting back the energy of Scorpio.
Gosh, I learned so much about Georgia O'Keeffe from you this week on Instagram, and her nomination is like a final to Queen of Scorpio, because I was pretty ignorant to her work. And the biggest thing that struck me about her was similar to her friend Frida Kahlo, like her intense like desire for relationship, and to kind of like blend with her long-term partner, and how the aftermath of that was a very a dark but then ultimately like hugely transformative experience for her. And speaking of like relationships and abstinence and or celibacy rather, and that kind of thing, like turning from like one state of being to another and then using that to fuel creativity, it feels like very, very like inspiring and hugely transformative. And those scenes of her like in the desert were just like, I actually like dropped my jaw because it was so beautiful and very Scorpio to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that image of her walking in that black dress over the rocks that you posted in your stories a few times. It's really striking. I first heard about Georgia O'Keeffe when I was in high school. I was, I wanted to be like a visual artist, and in some ways, like I like to call myself a failed artist, but I think people sometimes might take it the wrong way. But I mean it in a funny way, because obviously that's not true. My medium has just changed. But I remember hearing about Georgia O'Keeffe through her partner Alfred Stieglitz, and I often associate the two, but I associate her with just like that being able to separate yourself from the world for the sake of channeling the depth of what is you, and also like making these very vaginal like paintings. Like to me that is so emblematic of Scorpio, and you can just see it in her face, in her style, in her grace. She's just such a powerful force, and I like your the Queen of the Zodiac. Like I always find it so interesting, like the folks that you choose, the figures that you choose, because it's not always like, it's not a popularity contest. Mm-hmm. It really does get to the heart of like who embodies these traits of their signs, and I feel like Georgia O'Keeffe like is really so emblematic of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it kind of is amazing that people don't make it into a popularity contest. When I first came upon that, I was like, oh, it's just going to be a popularity contest. But people really do take it seriously, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. Georgia, to me, I go down to New Mexico at least 2 or 3 times a year, and I'm around where she worked because of the practice that I do, Kundalini Yoga. They have a Kundalini Yoga festival down there once a year, and then there's other meditation courses that I do down there. And that land is just so beyond magical and so mystical and so otherworldly. And I remember the first time, I'd seen her work and I'd never been to New Mexico, and I was like, she kind of exaggerates things, it's not like that sun's like really bright red, like that's a little bold and exaggerated. But then you go to New Mexico and you look at the sunset and it looks exactly like that, and you're like, this is the truth of this, like this is the essence. She somehow brings the essence forth and makes it so simple and so clear, kind of like the heart of the thing. She gets to like the bare bones of it. And yeah, the sexuality that just kind of oozes through in the landscapes and the flowers and the bones. It feels so essential, and it feels so nitty gritty and so honest and so real, and so smooth and so sexy. So yeah, I love her work and always have. And she's the only woman with with her own museum in Santa Fe. I don't think there's any other woman with a museum dedicated to a woman artist, which is awesome.
That's cool. Yeah, and I liked hearing how you were saying sexuality oozes. It doesn't, not even just in the flowers, but in the landscapes. And then when she's asked about that, she's like, that's not my intention. And that to me almost like reflects like the unconscious nature of Scorpio.
Mm-hmm. It makes it so much more sexy.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, nice.
But that's how we are. Like, people think we're sexy, and it's like, oh, are we? Like, I don't know.
To be sure. So, if Georgia O'Keeffe wins, then both of our water queens will be the only 2 women, because we have Queen of Cancer, Frida Kahlo, and they would be the only 2 women that have been deceased, which I thought would be kind of interesting. And there'd also be the only 2 queens that would be painters, whereas all the other ones are like either activists or actors or singers, and there's more of an outward thing, whereas painting, it feels much more reflective, which I thought would be an interesting connection to water signs, their relationship to death, and also to painting. And I also kind of found this out yesterday. Like, there's speculation that Frida Kahlo and Georgia O'Keeffe had a little love affair connection. It's speculation, but they shared some letters with one another, and there's like some detail of like, oh, the color of your eyes and like your hands and all this kind of stuff too. So just adding.
I believe it, and I'm in support of it.
So then we have to find a dead Pisces artist.
There's a few of them, like Anaya Snin could be a good Pisces queen, but we'll wait till Pisces season for that. So who are we casting our vote for? I mean, I thought when y'all were talking about Bjork, I'm like, they're all in on Bjork. And then when y'all talked about Georgia, you're like all in there, which I think is a reflection of Scorpio's ability to like go in deep and like connect to people. So
I'm going for Georgia, just because I feel like there's a quietness and kind of a secrecy to her work, because she is kind of the work is what the world sees, and then there's her life. And I think the privacy is so important to Scorpio. And I think with Bjork, I see all the Scorpio energy with Bjork, but I think you were the one that told me, Jeff, that I think Uranus is on her sun. Is that right?
So yeah, she has Uranus and Pluto conjunct, and that only happens once every 120 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
And
it's
they're-
conjunct on her midheaven.
On her midheaven, that's what it is. And I think that gives her this kind of, like, Scorpios are weird, but, like, she's, like, another level of weird. Like, Bjork's, like, another, like, it feels more Aquarian, it feels more, I don't know, not as the Scorpios to me are almost not, I don't want to say plain, but not as eccentric as she is. You know, like, we're eccentric, but it's in a very quiet, kind of secretive way, while she's very she puts it out there as a show, and so I'm voting for Georgia.
Yeah, I'm going to second that for all the reasons that you said. Yeah.
Wow.
Going for Georgia.
Yeah, same here, because I totally agree with everything you said, and I'm at the risk of sounding like a little bit trite, like the fact that Georgia is deceased just adds a layer for me of being able to look at her life and her, the way she lived it, and then her death, and how she's been received since. And I think there's exactly like you put it, the quietness and the kind of like desire to move more in the shadows. I think is like a very like kind of like powerful and like true like essence of Scorpio. And I also just personally got so much out of like all the learning about Georgia O'Keeffe that I had from this kind of tournament. So yeah, all in for Georgia.
Yeah, she's like the queen of the underworld, both in life and in death, especially in death. So yeah, I think she's it for me.
So that's it, cousins. You heard the Scorpio panels casting their vote for Georgia O'Keeffe.
The bones are shapes that I enjoy. It never occurs to me that they have anything to do with death. They are very lively.
And that takes us into our final soul-centered Scorpio trait, Scorpio number 5. And so right now it is 3 Georgia O'Keeffe, 2 Bjork. If Bjork wins this category, it's tied up. It takes it to a final vote. If Georgia wins this category, she'll be our queen of Scorpio. So soul-centered trait number 5 is sharp discernment without judgment. Offers spiritual guidance and existential insight. And Bjork does this so well in the spiritual advice that she gives out in her songs and the wisdom that she exudes. And then Georgia, through her lifestyle, offers spiritual guidance to women and artists long after her death. And the first ever Cosmic Cousins Queen of Scorpio is Georgia O'Keeffe.
I'll be 90 in a few months. But think of that, I'll be 90. You have to use your body to keep it alive. Keep on exercising. Keep on using your body. Oh, it's a especially fine place to climb around it.
Have you climbed over these
Oh,
hills?
certainly. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you climb if you were here?
Wow. Bringing me to tears right there. Queen of Scorpio is Georgia O'Keeffe. And what a journey it's been with you all. It's been such an amazing ride. Thank you so much for everyone that put so much into it. And I can really feel, and the Scorpio panel was talking about it, that we're not just voting on our favorites, we're voting on who is really embodying this energy. And I'm excited to see what comes up next. So Queen of Sagittarius will be our next Queen of the Zodiac project. And again, this is the season 4 finale, and the season 5 premiere will air on December 19th, where we will crown the Queen of Sagittarius. But if you don't want to miss out on all the action, you can sign up for the Patreon for the show, and you'll receive transit updates, meditations, and also Queen of the Zodiac updates during off season. Also, I'll still be doing the Instagram, so you can follow along with the Queen of the Zodiac on Instagram. And this is the big news that I had for y'all. The first ever live audience will gather with me for the season 5 premiere on Tuesday, December 18th in New York City. So if you're in New York in December and you want to hang out with me live, this episode will start out by honoring Sagittarius through a guided meditation for embodied health, followed by a lesson on understanding soul-centered Sag. And then you'll enjoy the first ever Sagittarius panel with 3 Sagittarius healers, an artist and mystics in our healing community. And then finally, our time will round out by honoring the 2 Sagittarius queens and crowning one of them Queen of Sagittarius. And the Queen of the Zodiac is a series that is meant to be celebrated in community. So I'm excited to do that during Sag. That feels really right. And to be doing it back in New York City. It will be at Maha Rose on December 18th, Tuesday at 7 p.m. And I'm announcing it here on the podcast first. And I will be giving that information out in a newsletter with a link to sign up to it. So if you're really wanting to go, sign up for my newsletters, and I'll be sending a message out later on this week where you can buy your ticket to come to the live studio recording. Really excited. It'll be a great way to connect with you all and just to share in the gratitude of what we're creating together. And so at this time, we're going to transition into the last part of this episode where we will get to hang out with 3 Scorpios. And so let's do that now. Today on Cosmic Cousins, we're celebrating the powerful, transformative, and magnetic energy of Scorpio with our first ever astrological Scorpio panel. And I gotta say, I'm feeling pretty solid about the Scorpio trio that we have with us today, because they're all bringing a potent dose of high vibe healing. So let's get into it. Thank you for being here, Scorpios.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I thought we would start with Jerico and
Hello.
go in the order that I've met you all. And so Jerico Mandybur is a writer, tarot reader, Reiki practitioner, and the author of Neo Tarot, which is a book and tarot deck coming out in April of 2019. And Jerico is also the editorial director of Girlboss. So welcome to the show, Jerico.
Thanks so much for having me.
I'm stoked to be gathering with you because I have a special place in my heart for you because we did the Brooklyn Fools Tarot journey together.
Yeah.
So that was a 6-month private tarot journey. And I don't know, was that like 2 years ago now?
Yeah, just about coming up on 2 years. It was such an amazing experience, and I think of it fondly all the time. And I try and practice everything you taught me on the daily. I still have my journal like right next to me on my desk, so it was very profound.
Mm-hmm. That's one. Yeah, the cool thing about our journey was that we started out. I was in New York City, and then Jerico was in Australia. And then Jerico, you got hired at Girlboss and moved to Los Angeles. And then towards the end of your journey, I moved to Hawaii. And so we were playing this little leapfrog action. But then we both ended up in LA, and then I reached out to you, and we ended up living 2 blocks from each other in Los Angeles out of all the places. And
That's so amazing.
so I still think about that synchronicity.
Me too, and I remember our first gathering when we were discussing the Fool card, and we both got the Death card to describe like the journey that we were about to go on. It's so interesting thinking about that now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Death card being the energy that connects us to Scorpio. So I think this could be a good segue into your tarot. I didn't actually realize you had a deck coming out in April. Could you tell us a little bit about the Neo Tarot?
Sure, yeah. So it's a book that has a deck to go along with it, and the deck's illustrated by this amazing artist from Argentina called Diana Ruiz. And the book, I didn't want it so much to be like a traditional, just kind of like meaning of each card. I tried to kind of present it through the lens of self-care and more of a personal, like, one-on-one journey with the tarot. So yeah, that's kind of what I've done, and the illustrations, I think, reflect that. They're very, like, femme-centric, but also I tried to make them very inclusive and celebratory of all the differences that I don't really see reflected in a lot of traditional decks. So I'm excited about it.
I cannot wait to see it. What
Thank you.
Could you share with us what the death card is going to look like?
Yeah, well, they're all, like, pretty closely modeled on the Rider-Waite-Smith illustration. So the death card is kind of an androgynous figure that kind of seems human, but then has this, like, secondary layer of a skeleton coming through, and they're walking across a field waving a red flag, and they're, like, just barefoot on the grass. So it's very inspired by Pamela Coleman Smith's death card, but also just kind of simplified, stripped down, and a little bit modernized. But the figure of death is wearing a pretty cute outfit. So
Oh. I'm kind of struck by the color red there for the flag.
yeah, I think I just wanted something that was a little bit intense, you know, and passionate and Mars-like, and tapping into that kind of side of the archetype of the death card and Scorpio. So yeah. And I hear, is that your pup in the background? Oh, sorry. Yes.
What's going on with pup?
She's good. She's probably really... I shouldn't be wearing noise-cancelling headphones because I can't hear her, but you can.
Yeah. So the deck, that sounds amazing. I'm excited to see that. You're a Taurus rising. So when is... It's in April. What's the date of April that it's coming out?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't actually know. I'm hoping it's a nice one and it's very complementary to my chart, but I didn't honestly look into it that much.
Well, since you're a Taurus rising, that indicates that towards the end of April, you'll be coming into the new cycle on your wheel. So it's a new chapter for you during Taurus season.
Yes.
That was cool. That might line up. You also host a podcast called Self-Service on Girlboss Radio, where you sprinkle in some tarot magic. And I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about Girlboss as well, since you're the editorial director there.
Okay, well, yeah, it's a media company that is a podcast network and a site and a rally twice a year. And the podcast that I do, Self-Service, it's actually on a break right now, but it's really about self-care and spirituality, and I speak to different people with different perspectives and practices on that. And I kind of do that a little bit on the side as well. So the name kind of makes it seem like it's just all about, like, hustle and, you know, stuff like that. But the flip side of that is wellness. So I see those as, like, two sides of the same coin. So we try and talk a lot about self-care and various kind of, not necessarily spiritual, but, you know, practices that nourish us, mind, body, spirit, and how that is just, you know, more important than ever right now. And, like, the harder and busier people work, the more they need to take care of themselves. So it was really important for me in my role that, like, I took that seriously and came at it with a sense of responsibility.
Beautiful. Thanks for all the work that you're doing in the world. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
So lovely to have you. Yeah, let's go into Alia now. So, welcome to the show, Alia Walston.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Alia is an intuitive channeler, an educator working primarily with tarot and astrology. And the intention of her work is to help liberate us from old paradigms of victimhood, scarcity, and fear through facing our traumas and transmuting pain into empowerment. So, Scorpio Queen.
No big deal.
Through and through. Yeah. We first met through the interwebs on Instagram, and I think because you worked with my soul sister, Lindsay Mack. think, if that was correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I was reminded of your work at the beginning of Scorpio season because you were on the podcast So You Want to Be a Witch by Sarah Chappell. And when I was listening to it, I didn't make the connection that it was you at first. But as you were talking, I was like, this is some mad Scorpio stuff right now. And then at some point in the interview, you were like, yep, I'm a Scorpio. And there it was. And so I reached out to you because I was really inspired by everything that you were sharing. And so let's go back a little bit. The intention of your work is to help liberate us from old paradigms of victimhood, scarcity, and fear. I just wanted to read that again. How did you get involved in this kind of work?
Well, it came from my own experiences with victimhood, scarcity, and fear. And knowing through those difficult experiences that there had to be something else for me to be learning besides just the pain of it. And so, I've had a history of dealing with addiction. And as I was kind of coming out of that struggle, I started to seek higher guidance. It mostly came in the form of following a bunch of tarot readers and astrologers on Instagram, which is how I found out about Lindsay Mack and you and Brooklyn Tarot and like all that. It was an amazing way to kind of pair my kind of aspirations in life as someone who was kind of learning how to get cleaner or live a cleaner life, though I don't place a value judgment on clean or dirty because sometimes you just gotta get dirty. But yeah, magic has always been a part of my life, but it was only just a few years ago that I decided to formalize my relationship with it through tarot and astrology.
And your healing practice centers on intuitively channeled writings and conversations. And I was hoping you could tell us a bit more about what that means and feels like.
Yeah, I'm a feeling person. I am someone that follows my intuition on a very deep level, even to an extent that I don't even always notice it. And it is really being a water sign. I really do go with the flow as much as I can, even though I am also still an uptight Scorpio. But it's it really comes from a place of just getting insights from everything that I can. I found that more and more part of my practice, I'm getting kind of downloads and messages through kind of all speech and experiences that I'm having. And so I really try my best as a healer to be really real with people and really offer an insight into what I experience. And that is the lens through which I offer my insights and my writings and my channelings, because that's what I know. And I've been able to kind of, create and adapt a language to it that's through, lenses that we kind of understand collectively, like tarot and astrology. But it really comes from the heart. It comes from my own kind of waking up every day and what am I facing today? What I feel uncomfortable, so how do I work through this? I feel happy. How do I express this? It's a really personal journey that I try to share, even though it's for everyone. It's for the collective.
Yeah, and everything that you're sharing, you go in so much depth in all of this on that episode of So You Want to Be a Witch. And so if you're wanting to get more of this fill from Alia, check out that episode. I'll put a link in the show notes. I'll put a link in the show notes to everyone's website so you can check out all of the incredible offerings that they're having in the world. But yeah, thank you for being with us, Alia. You're a Capricorn rising and a Taurus moon. I like to add those in there too. And Jerico, you're an Aquarius moon, right? With a Taurus rising. And so that takes us into our final Scorpio, which I'm excited to introduce you to, Pavanjeet. Hello.
actually think he got disconnected.
Oh no. Let's see if he texted me. Scorpio. So
He just dipped. Very Scorpio.
I just texted him, and we'll see if he comes back in. But if not, we'll just have a third panelist that's out there in the darkness somewhere. He's texting me back now. I'm sure he'll get connected back in. He said he dropped off because he didn't want to call back in the middle.
I'm back.
Okay, there you are. See, we went straight to like Scorpio dipping out, but you were actually being very compassionate and like very fixed water, saying I was going to wait for Alia to finish her introduction before he came back in. So
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt her. That would have been so rude.
yeah. Well,
Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so Pavanjeet is a Kundalini Yoga and meditation teacher based in Boulder, Colorado. And his yogic studies began at 16 and have taken him around the world. Thanks for being here. You're Sagittarius rising. We feel that with the traveling around the world. And we met through our mutual Sagittarius friend, Amanbir. And I remember seeing you in Amanbir's video stories, and I thought you were really hilarious. You have this way of speaking what's on your mind in a really direct and funny way. But at the same time, you have this way of, it's aligned with like a greater purpose. There's like some truth bombs to it, and you're deeply immersed in your spiritual practice. Could you tell us a little bit about Kundalini for those tuning in who might not be that familiar with the practice?
Yeah, so Kundalini Yoga is a practice, an ancient practice brought to the West by my teacher, Yogi Bhajan. And it is a way to move through the layers of bullshit and find yourself, find your true self. Connecting with yourself through movement, through mantra, through breath, and connecting with your essence.
Mm-hmm. And it's interesting to me because I often associate Kundalini with wearing all white. But then I associate Scorpio with wearing all black. So what do you do there?
Make fun of me because I am either in all white or all black. I'm in all white right now because I've been teaching all day, and I decided to keep the white on. But a lot of times I'm in all black. It really depends. The white is part of the technology of the yoga, and so we wear all white because it expands the aura. And for me, it's also a little bit of a protective thing because black absorbs energy. And so when I'm teaching and people are moving through different processes, I don't really want to absorb their energy. I want to radiate my own light. And so I usually pick white. But then when I want to be on my Scorpio sneaky self and go to the grocery store without everyone recognizing me, then I kind of do the black look.
Nice. Yeah. So along with your teachings of Kundalini, so you do classes, workshops, retreats, personalized sessions that connect your students to their inner truth, to their power, which has given us Scorpio high vibe for sure. But you also consult current astrological transits when you teach. Could you share a little bit about what this relationship to astrology feels like?
Yeah, so the way that I work is very intuitively, especially when I'm working with a person just one-on-one, and I let different things come to me, different practices. Kundalini Yoga has so many different meditations, so many different yoga sets to choose from, and so I kind of let those come intuitively, and then I'll use the astrology to kind of understand why that came through. And so I'll look at their natal chart, I'll look at what transits are happening at that time. I had someone I was just working with, and I was doing something called a rebirthing kriya, which is where you clear certain energies out from the past. And this one, the one that came really through for her, was on the 7th year. And so I was like, okay, let me see what was happening with her astrologically on the 7th year. And I looked it up, and it said it was really strong indication that she had moved, or there had been a big family dynamic that changed. And then when I got to talk to her, she was like, yeah, I moved to this country from South America. So it really helps me in knowing the person without, talking to them before, and getting deep into whatever they need to work on at that time.
Powerful. That's really cool. You offer a really refreshing perspective to these ancient practices while still maintaining their integrity. So if you're interested in learning more, Pavanjeet has a weekly class at Raj Yoga and Meditation in Boulder, and that's Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday evenings. And you also have a full moon regeneration breathwork and gong experience that's coming up on Black Friday as well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? What's the breathwork and gong experience?
It's this amazing practice. It's like 45 minutes of breath work that really just helps the nervous system to relax, helps to activate the glandular system, and opens you up so that you can receive the vibrations of the gong. And the gong is basically the sound of the universe. It's the Big Bang reverberating through the universe. And we use the gong to connect with that sound. In this practice, we would call that sound Ong, O-N-G, and then gong is G, the generating force of Ong. And so will open you, the practice will open you up with a breath, and then you get to lay down, relax, and just kind of float in the universe as I generate the sound of the universe through the gong.
That sounds really nice.
Yeah, I figured it would be nice after Thanksgiving.
Yeah, for sure. And I feel like, we could all use that at this time, because I know we're all working hard. This is something that has been coming up throughout the month, and I want to get into that with y'all. So that's the introductions. We'll kind of transition now into the question portion and kind of going into this hardworking energy. This is what I wanted to bring up, because Pluto is in Capricorn. And so one thing that is unique about this panel is that this is the first time an astrological panel has gathered at nighttime. And so, for one...
That's so absurd. Like, so comical and perfect for Scorpio.
It feels like... So it's like... It being dark out is like definitely setting the mood nice for Scorpio, but it's also like on a very practical level, it's because Pavanjeet was working and teaching yoga. And so there is this relationship for Scorpio between work and responsibility right now with Pluto and Capricorn as well. So Pluto, right, is Scorpio's ruling planet and has been in Capricorn since 2008. And so this means Scorpio and all of us during this time are answering to Pluto and Capricorn, which is transformation around career, authority, government, and the patriarchy. Jericho, I know you work really hard. You immerse yourself in it with Girlboss. Hello, Scorpio. It's like immersion into whatever they're doing. And right now with Pluto and Scorpio, and I also read today on Instagram, Alia, you had this section about work. And I kind of want to read some of what you wrote because I thought it was beautiful. But you said, some days your only job is to remember to breathe. Some days your only job is to remember to love yourself. Honestly, today is a day when I have a million things on my plate professionally, but I write this to remind myself and my kindred souls that just because we are stressed doesn't mean we should neglect our self-care. So I wanted to kind of create dialogue around this. What is Pluto and Capricorn like for our Scorpios?
It's work. I mean, that's one aspect of it. And as you mentioned, I'm a Capricorn rising, so right now I'm going through I've been going through an intense kind of transformation of the self, or how I perceive the world and how the world is perceiving me. And it's not. I don't know. It's interesting being a Scorpio and a Capricorn rising, because I'm kind of always haunted by the idea of work and the idea of labor, and I'm tempted to value myself based off how I work and the quality of my work, not just working, but it having a sort of meaning attached to it. It has some sort of transformational value, or it affects the big picture in some way. But it's also allowed for a lot of really important, intense transformations for me, but professionally and personally. And so it's really juicy medicine, but it's like a real mess. It's like I was like just had this image of like just eating like I don't know why this might be a weird vision, but it's like eating a lot of plums and just like all the mess just kind of getting everywhere, all the juice, but like it's still like this really it is kind of gnarly. Like plums look kind of gross when you eat them, but like it's still this like really fulfilling enjoyable experiences where there's so much learning and so much depth that's coming out of it. I mean, it's good, but it's not chill. That's for sure. I would say.
I would agree. It's not chill, but I've been trying to find the chill in it. I've been trying to find the space. For me, it's been learning to take care of myself within the pressure and really honoring the space that I need to give myself to breathe, to do my practice so that I can deliver what I need to deliver. And I really have to be in an open and settled space for that. And so taking care of myself has been a big lesson during this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I would agree with what you guys just said completely. I mean, I've got like this lifelong struggle with immersing myself in work too much, as Jeff knows, to the point of, in the past getting really sick. And a lot of that's been coming up for me lately. It's a very like cyclical process, and I can go a little bit too far in and then I have to like climb back out slightly and like find myself and rebalance. So I've been thinking about that a lot as I take on more personal projects, but also try and balance this kind of like rigorous day job. So yeah, it's like an ongoing project.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Jerico, I really relate to like having like I have a day job as well, like a full-time job, and like trying to balance that and like insert the spiritual into my job. I work at an arts high school while also trying to maintain like a small business and become an entrepreneur. It's like, where's the line? It's a really blurry line, as a Scorpio, I would say.
Definitely.
So Pluto will be in Capricorn until 2024. It will make its shift into Aquarius for about 30 years. So we'll have to check in 2024 and see what that shift feels like for you. Yeah, let's go in on a deep question, a Scorpio deep question. Scorpio is connected to the genitalia, the reproductive organs, the urinary tract. Scorpio is also associated with being highly sexual and holding the power to bring about sexual healing. What is your relationship to sexuality as a Scorpio?
Wow, good question. Mm-hmm. I've had to undergo a lot of sexual healing. I've always found myself to be a really sexual being, but that kind of like energy has scared me for a lot of my life. And in other areas of my life, things that have been scary, I've just wanted to, dive into and get to the truth of as much as possible. But something about like my like personal sexual world that I was like a bit more standing on the edge of like the thing instead of jumping off. So the way that I kind of like found my way through that and got to know like my kind of sexual side a little better was through spirituality, like having a kind of connection to the divine via like my sexuality and like my sexual organs was the thing that made like a huge difference, because I was able to just kind of see it as a part of like a much greater picture and saw it as something that was redemptive and lined up with, the other kind of like narratives that were playing out in my life. So yeah, I think that's probably something that's ongoing as well. But I think a lot of people have this like idea of Scorpios as being like really sexually confident, but so much of what like gives Scorpios that reputation, I think, is that like real deep desire for intimacy, and that can be a very intimidating and huge undertaking, and not necessarily like a clear linear path as well, you know.
I have to agree in that, but my sexuality was terrifying to me, especially being queer, growing up in Texas, military family with 3 boys. I think how passionate I wanted to be, and how intense I wanted to be was absolutely terrifying to me. And I actually, when I was 16, my lungs collapsed. Both of my lungs collapsed. And it was spontaneous. And the issue when your lungs, when it was one lung at a time. So the issue when your lungs collapse is not that you can't breathe. You can actually breathe on one lung. But the air gets into your chest cavity and it eventually will crush your heart if you don't take care of it. And my lungs had been collapsed for like 6 weeks, and the air, I was feeling it on the pressure on my heart, and my heart was just going crazy. And this is right around the time when I was kind of coming out and starting to learn more about my sexuality. And now I can look back at that and be like, oh, like my intellectual self was this air, that quality of air was like trying to crush my passion. It was trying to crush this deep passion that was within me. And so it's been a long journey, and I feel like I'm only at the beginning of the journey in some ways, of really discovering. It's not even like, to me, the passion of Scorpio in the sexual realm, it's not even really about like the body in a certain way. It's about this deep, deep connection that goes like lifetimes and lifetimes, and you just want to see someone in this intimate way where it's like you know each other. You just know each other beyond. Looking for that and even asking for that is terrifying. And I'm in a place where it's like I'm finally able to ask for it and expect it and be fine with saying that that's what I want from the universe, and that I deserve it.
Wow. I love what both of you all had to say about this, because I relate to so much of it. I think that the thing about that kind of depth of connection that Scorpios look for through sexuality, it requires vulnerability, which is not something that Scorpios are particularly good at without effort, you know? And so that can really set one up for some tricky situations as you kind of come into your sexuality, which is like what kind of happened with me, where I ended up in a lot of situations where I was not happy with what I was experiencing. It was not, the kind of, it wasn't always consensual. It wasn't always the kind of loving, eon-spanning kind of relationships or experiences that I was looking for. And I think I'm in a period now where I'm intentionally celibate, because I am really learning to get to know myself and my body in a way that I was too afraid to access before. I started to really take stock of myself. It's been about a year now, and it's a whole world, because there's a lot to like reckon with, especially if you're like, I just turned 31, like there's like years of like sexual like trauma that happens and that manifests in all kinds of ways, and like just other kinds of experiences of like repression as well through ancestral legacies, and so it takes, I try to view sexuality not just as like a fulfillment of desire, but also like asking like what desire is, and recognizing that sexuality is ultimately like a creative act. It's an act of creation. And so if I am feeling this desire, then I try to ask myself, what am I desiring to create in this moment right now? What am I trying to bring forth? Is it something that can be kind of channeled through the genitals and just like, taken care of like that? Or is it something that should be more heart-centered, should be more, throat-centered, something that like, am I bringing it up and outward into a different kind of in a different kind of form. Is it writing? Is it artwork? Is it, a channeling? And so I've never, like, in a million years thought I'd be like where I am right now, where I'm just like, I feel very content within myself, and just am like really pleased to be able to use my energy in a way that's very controlled, but it doesn't deprive me of any kind of joy, and it allows me to be more vulnerable than I've ever been, so that when I do have interest in partnership again, I will be able to offer myself, and not just offer myself, but also be able to receive, which is really tough as a Scorpio sometimes. Like, being able to receive love and romance and all that stuff is, that's something that I'm still learning. Will probably always be learning.
That's definitely the work, being vulnerable and receiving, for sure.
Yeah.
And I just want to note, because it's funny that you said this. I was also celibate from like 30 to 31, like
oh, yeah?
year. Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I'm about to turn 32, so I came out of it. But I think that's part of the Scorpio thing, is like withdrawing and withholding, and then excess. We kind of like find this balance in between those, and we're always kind of navigating that. At least I feel that within myself, of both extremes, and then trying to find the space in between those.
Absolutely, yes, exactly.
For sure.
Powerful. So many thoughts were flooding through about like where to take this next, but I was sensing the fixed water energy from what you all were sharing, and also sensing into the polarity. Since we're talking about balancing, maybe the polarity between Scorpio and Taurus could be a cool thing to explore. So Scorpio's polar sign is Taurus. We've got a Taurus rising and a Taurus moon in the group, so this will be cool. But Taurus is all about connecting to the earth plane, whereas Scorpio is all about connecting to the depth of emotion. So if, on one way we can look at this, if Scorpio falls into their Scorpio nature, they might ignore Taurus. So this could be like an unhealthy relationship to the body. Maybe Scorpio doesn't feed themselves or doesn't experience nature when they're in this state. There could be a compulsion to money, spending money, gambling, or like in the case of Winona Ryder, who was one of the Scorpio queens, shoplifting. So what does this bring up for you as a Scorpio? That were there ever moments in your life where perhaps you had fallen too far into the realm of Scorpio and you ignored this Taurus polarity?
Yes.
And what was that like?
Yeah. I feel like I was there for most of my life, and having like a kind of a pop interest in astrology for like most of my young life, I really leaned into the kind of more cliche or more like lower incarnation traits of Scorpio hard, because I was like, it's because I'm a Scorpio, so like I can just not care about looking after my body or these other things, because it was just so all or nothing about so much. So I wasn't connected to my body. I was kind of like very physically destructive, and in my kind of like romantic quest for like the truth and like high-minded things and being like emotionally just intense, I thought that things like nourishing food and nature and clean air were like somehow below me, which I'm like so embarrassed to say now, but I think it's just a testament to how fixed one can be when they're enjoying the more kind of like dramatic elements of that kind of lower vibe Scorpio.
I feel you there. I also did not treat my body well at all. Was like trying to escape my body in every way possible in my early 20s, and was trying to poison it basically through addictions and just escaping it. And actually it was through food, learning to cook for myself and nourish myself, that I really started to, my whole healing journey started. I just like planned with a friend to meet every Wednesday night and we would cook together. And that was, I really see that as like a key to my healing, is learning to take care of myself in that way. And then the yoga came, and being in my body and experiencing my body is like a daily practice that I have to do so that I remember to take care of this vessel. Because it's very easy for me to forget to eat. I like forget it all the time. I have to be like, oh wait, yeah, food. I have to like schedule it in, like, oh yeah, eat food. That's an important thing. So yeah, I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I relate to like the kind of ideas of like, not ideas, but experiencing lots of like destructive tendencies and wanting to ignore the body as much as possible. Just feeling like, even today, still, sometimes I look at myself and I'm just like, I appreciate my looks and my beauty, whatever, but sometimes I'm just like, who is this person? Like, what is this body? Like, what am I in? Like, I guess I'm human. Like, yeah, I'm walking around and I'm seeing myself, but it is kind of a strange, it's strange sometimes being in a body. But I also find sometimes I go, because I'm on the sun-moon polarity, sometimes I go way the other way, and I'm just like, I am a sloth. I am a creature that needs to just consume food to feel like I'm emotionally connecting to things. Like, I'm here to sit on my couch and just kind of have these very material experiences of like eating really pleasurable food. Like even today, like I was talking to my roommate like yesterday, like I do not make just like simple meals like ever. Like I'm very extra when it comes to like all of my seasoning and like ingredients. And so it's really important for me to have like a really strong experience of like consuming food, and I feel deprived when I don't get that. So sometimes I end up like kind of emotionally connecting to food too much. But it's like it's a weird journey, just trying to respect the vessel and to not make my vessel the enemy. Like I in so many ways I wish I could just be like without form, not like dead, but like without form. And I have to realize that this is a gift, like to be embodied. It's a joy to be able to experience the pleasures of the physical world and nature. And that's what I'm here for.
And that right there is what soul-centered Scorpio is. Exactly what you said. And with your Taurus moon, we can feel into, so if Scorpio falls too into their Scorpio nature, that's what we were just talking about, and then it can swing the other way. And we could get so far in the Scorpio realms that Scorpio needs to preserve themselves by swinging all the way into Taurus. And so maybe in this, Scorpio denies their Scorpio gifts, and they become overwhelmed by their deep felt emotion and their connection to death and spirit. And so Scorpio here is like, nah, I'm good. This is too dark. This kind of reminds me of a scene from Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, who's also a Scorpio. And she's like, starts hearing voices of spirits, and she's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. And so this is then when Scorpio might become immersed in their work or practicality, and they can indulge in food or in alcohol or drugs or substances to numb their Scorpio tendencies. Mm-hmm. And have you noticed yourself swinging into the Taurus polarity, and how do you bring the swing back into a rightful balance?
Yeah, it's like, it's always all about presence and just not letting any aspect of yourself get carried away, which is tough. I mean, the brain is not really interested. It's not invested in presence. It's not what it does. It's not its function. It likes to be in the past and it likes to be in the future. And so we talked a lot about like work and being like into like kind of work being an obsession in some ways. And so part of what I see my work as is like always being willing to choose to be present, and that's like my job. That's one of my jobs in this lifetime, is to pay attention to where I am right now, and to really see the value in all experiences, even as much as sometimes I can be kind of fixed and suspicious and skeptical as Scorpio can be. It's still important to just let yourself, I know it's corny, but to just like let yourself be, and not to allow judgment to get carried away. Very much easier said than done.
Yeah, I can get a little obsessed with routine sometimes, like a Taurus, and a little decadent as well. But yeah, I don't have any Earth in my chart, so I don't swing that way too much. Like, I'm the opposite of, like, I have a couch and I've, like, never sat on it. I just, like, look at my couch and I'm like, one day I'm just gonna sit there and be still. But I have a Gemini moon and a Sagittarius rising, so they keep me running around.
Yeah. That's so funny. That's like not quite the same. I have like my Mercury and my Mars in Libra, so it can kind of go there, but it's like I'm trying to relate to other people all the time, which is pretty exhausting as well.
So she's a Scorpio.
Yeah.
I know we're a little bit over time, and we said we were going to close out with a Scorpio altar building, but I just wanted to respect your time. It would probably take about 5 minutes, and if you don't have that time, then we can just close out in a shorter way.
We all have to go have sex now. It's too late. You're getting into Scorpio sex. I'm good.
Yeah, I'm free. I have time. Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, it's fine.
So I thought it would be cool if we ended our time creating a virtual Scorpio altar, so we can just place it out forward and then share why this is our item, and also maybe something that you've learned this Scorpio season or from the Scorpio panel that feels really resonant to you. And also, happy solar return to all of you as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I have an older item that it's kind of funny how Scorpio it is. It's a horse jawbone, like half of a horse jawbone, and I acquired it just before Scorpio season began this year. And like, aside from just being very deathy and like aesthetically cool, I was just drawn to it because I recently went on a horse riding trip for the first time, and I was really intimidated by horses. So I was trying to kind of like face that fear, and I think like what I was scared of about them were, you know, things I was scared of in myself, like mostly having to relinquish control in order to like give something else your complete trust, and also just the idea of being like a free wild pony I haven't like always related to because I'm so damn fixed. So yeah, I'm putting it on the virtual altar to just kind of like honor like that journey of like trust and freedom, and honor nature and its cycles of life and death.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Thanks.
I too actually have an animal offering. And mine is a bird, a dead bird that I encountered probably like shortly before Scorpio season started. Maybe like a week before. Venus was definitely in Scorpio at the time. And this bird is a pine warbler, which is a migratory bird. They're not native to my area, to Chicago, but it was a bird that I found one day when I was feeling very sick. I was dealing with a health issue, and I was beating myself up about it. I was getting upset at myself for feeling unwell before I had to go to work, and I was not allowing. I was offering a lot of judgment in a kind of way that Scorpio, Sun, Capricorn rising can do. And instead of continuing along that lines of like self-judgment, I instead decided to pause, take all the time I needed to get to work and care for myself, have my herbal tea, like, you know, do the things that were nurturing to myself in my illness. And so I showed up to work a little bit late. And when I got to work, I was buzzing to be let in. And I looked down and I saw this beautiful, like a bright green pine warbler who had just passed away probably just a couple minutes before I got there. And I felt such like a strong connection to this bird because it's a reminder of transitions, of the opportunity for transformation, the opportunity to experience beauty and death. And it allowed me to be connected to, and I've been working with a lot of like animal medicine as well, like animal archetypes, animal totem cards, and it just seemed like a moment of real connection with the universe. And I actually took the bird and I buried it because it was such a beautiful pal. I wrapped it up in like in cloth and like some roses, and yeah, that's my guy. Like I think that I don't see, there's no mourning associated with this particular animal. It was just a celebration, and so I it's like an offering of death as a celebration, a time for renewal.
I'm going to be a Scorpio rebel, and I'm not going to put anything on the altar, but I will offer to wash and to clean the altar with smoke. And the herb that I've been using a lot is rue in the Scorpio season, this kind of protective energy for this descent into the darker season. And it's been something I've been burning a lot in my house. So I want to smoke to clear the altar and to wash the altar. I have an interesting experience or just relationship with stuff, which is something I've been working through with the Scorpio season of, I feel like I only buy things so I can get rid of it. I feel like Scorpios are like very much a purger. Like I love getting rid of stuff. That's like my favorite thing. And I've really been trying to, I just got a new place and I've been really trying to make it feel special and feel like the whole place is an altar. And in the absence of things, let that be the altar in a certain way, of like the simplicity, kind of going to Georgia, going to like the simplicity and kind of the clearness of it. Let that be what reminds me of the divine or reminds me of my connection or what I'm working on.
I bow to that. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to also add an item to the altar, even though I'm not a Scorpio, just to honor the energy. And I mean, right now we have a dead bird, bones, and smoke. So beautiful. And what I'm offering is going to add some color to it. So I have 2 scarves here. One is from my grandmother who has passed away, and the other one is from my Aunt Shelby who passed away this year. And they're both... were very fashionable and wore bright colors, and something about the brightness of these scarves really made me feel into like Georgia O'Keeffe's use of color and Bjork's use of color. And even though Scorpio is going into the darkness and the depth, there's also this appreciation of beauty of the world and of nature. And I think Alia said it when we were talking, but there was something about learning how to enjoy being here on this plane is the work for Scorpio, something along those lines. And so I wanted to honor these 2 women in my life who have passed away, and this fabric both of these scarves are very soft, and I often use them to wrap my tarot cards in as well. So I do have a very like mystical connection to these fabrics, and I just thought it seemed so beautiful to like lay this beautiful fabric between bones and a dead bird with smoke. Feels,
You can wrap the bird in it.
yeah. So I'll turn the video on so you can see them. They're just like really multicolored.
Oh.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
And then here's the other one. Yeah, so we can visualize all of that together on the altar. I also like to put tarot cards out when I'm working with altars for the astrological energies. So Judgment card is Pluto, Death card is Scorpio, and then I use the King of Cups as well to represent fixed water. And so let's close out our time together by bringing our awareness to the part of the body that Scorpio rules over, the reproductive organs. You can take a deep breath in there. And if anyone has any words that they'd like to share to close out our time together, it would be wonderful.
I've been just thinking how you said it was the reproductive organs. I also see them as the organs of release. And I see this season as a time to let go and release. And the way that we usually do that is through sadness or grief. And so that's something I've really been working with this season, is connecting to the sadness and seeing it as a gift and letting it carry away things that are no longer serving, so that we can make space for the new. And I feel like that's very Scorpio energy of what can we let go of to allow space to evolve.
I see like an ecstatic celebration of the letting go of the release, like dancing skeletons, like the bones jiggling, and we're all just like really experiencing the joy of letting go, because there's so much richness to be experienced through that, and there's a possibility of the new that comes with the release as well, and that's where I'm at this season.
Thank you guys for talking about this kind of idea and energy of letting go. I really feel like that a lot in this conversation. Listening to us talk has reminded me that there can also be like a lightness that like Scorpio energy brings to really like heavy or, you know, existential topics, and Scorpios are really funny.
I think so too. So much depth in this conversation, but also a lot of deep felt compassion. And so I'm bowing to all of you. Thank you, Scorpios, for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wow, cousins, the end of season 4, and we have done so much. I wanted to offer a little recap of all that we've uncovered during season 4. We crowned Viola Davis Queen of Leo, and we had a Leo panel with Christy Prokopiak, Allison Thompson, and Amy Kuretsky. And then we transitioned into Virgo, and we sat down with astrologer Ann Ortley, and we honored the life of Michael Jackson. Then we honored Amy Winehouse, and we sat down with Prince Pooja, the Kirtan singer. And then we got to hang out with Tatiana Terrell, and we crowned Beyonce our Queen of Virgo. And we had our Virgo panel with Alex Schechter, Eileen Hall, and Caitlin Kite. And then we moved into Libra, and we sat down with the incredible Summer Pallav Minerva. And we chatted it up with Sarah Jane Chapman, who gave us a wonderful guided meditation, and we honored the life of the great India Ari. And then we went into a conversation with a spiritual gaze, Brandon Alter and Angel Lopez. And during that conversation, we got to talk about what is life like as a couple. And on that episode, we looked at the very Libra theme of understanding relationships in astrology. And then we had our Libra panel, where we sat down with Genesee Rogers, Sate, and Jasmine Watson, and there was this like kind of hard rock Libra vibe going on, and we crowned Belle Hooks our Queen of Libra. And then for Scorpio, we got to hang out with Madre Jaguar, and we got to hang out with Weston of Rootlock Radio. And then now we had our Scorpio panel with Jerico Mandybur and with Pavanjeet and with Alia Walston. And we crowned our first ever Queen of Scorpio, Georgia O'Keeffe. So it's been quite a season. It's been such an honor to be here and hold space for you, and I can't wait till season 5. So send me a message, leave some love, rate 5 stars, comment, tell me you're out there, send me an email if you have any questions, and sign up for the Patreon for the show. If you want to stay connected and if you want to support me, and maybe I'll see you in New York City on December 18th, and if not, the episode will air December 19th. Take sweet care, cousins, and remember, deep breaths.